Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 The Open, the 150th edition of the Open. And this is going to be my Millie Maker preview. Get you all the information you need to know. We'll talk a little bit about even some favorite bets. I'm holding off a little bit on the betting side till I see a little more information on the weather. But I do have a few bets I've already placed. We're going to go through all the custom models and research and analysis. I need about 30 minutes of your time. Thank you for stopping by, and let's talk a little golf. Okay, so real quick, let's recap the Genesis Scottish Open. Of course, from a pick standpoint, it did not go so well. Now, funny enough, my whole lean was towards the AM/PM splits, so I had a lot of guys that actually kind of made it through. But just did not get up top. And I say the two key misses was Xander, who of course won and was in the afternoon, and same with Cantlay was in the afternoon. But on the left, you can see there, of course, Xander getting his third win of the season, second individual if you don't include the Zurich, and then of course also you could put in the gold medal. So technically, I guess you could say it's been 4 wins total for him. I would consider 2 from an individual side, the Travelers and the Genesis. But you can see some of the stroke gain data now. Some of this, this is what I got. I was not able to pull it through Fantasy National. And if you looked at even the PGA Tour through Tourcast, you could watch the shots, funny enough, but they were not giving stroke gain data, which is a bit confusing. But kind of a low number to gain on the stroke gain putting, just gained a half stroke on the field. Had third in birdies. Drove it great, 210 or 310 yards. Round the green, solid, and good on approach, a stroke and a half. But, it's pretty rare that you see these kind of stats, and he didn't lead at least first or, a couple of these stats in first. So that's what I thought was interesting when I saw that. But, good for Xander. Definitely was not really leaning his way again. I was purely focused on kind of the guys that were going off in the AM, and I liked a lot of those guys. Cam Smith did okay. Gary Woodland, at one time, after the first round was in second place against this guy, Cameron Tringali, which I thought was kind of interesting. He was not on my radar, but I believe it was for the Travelers when he was priced really low. And I kind of went on a rant about, hey, Cameron Tringali is actually, a good golfer. He falls apart on Sundays. He does have those spike weeks. I think the last time he really had a chance to win a tournament was back at the Valero. I think it was 2 years ago, not the most recent one. Where JJ Spawn won. But of course, Cameron Tringali went out there and was playing a total different course. I mean, he did a lot of it with the putter, but shot a 61, and funny enough, it was 9 under after Friday, which was 2 strokes better than actually what Xander won. I believe it ended up 7 under after all said and done. So, but of course, Tringali held on, still had the lead after day 2, and then kind of fell apart come Saturday, Sunday, which I was kind of expecting it. I did not bet him. I definitely did not jump on the Tringali train, but it's too bad. If he could have had that round somehow on Friday, if he could have started early morning and went out and posted that, of course, he would have won the tournament. And then the last thing, you've got Trey Mullinax, who also tweeted out, right? I don't know if you guys remember, but he was actually one of my long shots, and I do not remember now. It was, I think, a lengthy course. He bangs the ball really far off the tee. He's shown some life here or there, but he actually got his first win on the PGA Tour at the Barbasol, and you had Kevin Streelman right there. Of course, he missed the birdie putt, and Mullinax made it to get the win. You also had one of my buddies, Adam Svensson. So a lot more of my guys actually that I typically play on a DFS side and bet at the Barbasol. The sad thing was that the odds on Trey Mullinax and Svensson and a few of those guys, you're so used to getting them at 100 plus that they were quite low because, they were some of the better players in that really terrible field. So I didn't bet. The only thing I bet on, like Flavin, Patrick Flavin, I think he was like 150 to 1. And I made a couple bets towards the end just because I didn't want to miss Svensson. So I think I got him at like 20 to 1. Oh, and Mark Hubbard, who had a chance, I bet him. And that same thing, like I got him at like 20, 25 to 1. And both those guys fell short. But anyways, pretty good tournament at the Barbasol. I enjoyed the Scottish Open. It's a little bit about what we're expected to see, of course. The winds, like I said, except for Thursday morning, it was pretty windy. And then you had Sunday, wasn't too bad. But man, Friday, Saturday, it blew. And, you can see where the guys definitely struggled. All right, that's enough on the recap. I just wanted to kind of touch on that. Let's go talk a little bit about the last major of the year. So, of course, we are heading over to St. Andrews, the home of golf, the old course. You're going to hear all of those great little analogies over and over and over. And it's a short jaunt from where they just played. It's only 20 miles up the coast. I think it's a couple-hour drive. And this course has been around forever, but what I got was 1873. The actual Open's been held here 29 times. And if you actually try to figure out the architects, it was from many people over its history. But I just noted that old Tom Morris, of course, who had his golf fixing club shop right across the street from the first hole. He actually designed and architected hole number 1 and number 18, which are really iconic holes. You got a par 72, and it's a very unique par 72. We'll get into that when I look at the scorecard. Funny enough, what came from the superintendent from the PGA Tour was this number here, 7,536 yards. Everything I've heard is going to be around 7,300 yards. So, and it actually said this was unofficial. So I would, put it more in the 7,300 bucket, but this is the number they gave me, so I threw it on here. Your fairways are going to be fescue bent. You got some other things sprinkled in there, but that's the dominant 2 grasses. The rough, same thing. With again, there's a couple other grasses in there, but the majority is a fescue bent. It's going to be not very penal, about 1.5 inches rough. So, unless you get in that tall fescue, or they've got, of course, the pop bunkers, or you've got some like crazy bush things that are around. You're not going to get penalized, and these are very, very large fairways, and they're going to run forever, which sometimes can cause problems because they run out too far and get you in those pop bunkers. The green, same thing. It's a fescue bent, heavier on the fescue, and I believe there's even a dash of POA in there, but we're just going to go the fescue bent split. Your player field right now, what I'm getting from the PGA is 156, so a full player field. Of course, you had some guys, you got Trey that just got through from the Barbasol. They had 1 entry, he got in. Then you had some of the guys from the Scottish, which would be Kurt Kitayama. I'm going to forget some of the other guys, but you had 3 guys that got in from that side. You've got very large greens here, right? You got some of these greens are actually 2 greens combined. So you have 2 holes that connect. I mean, when you see the layout, if you don't know the layout, I'm sure you're just like Augusta. We're all pretty familiar, been watching golf for a while. You've seen this course a ton. But he's got these combined greens, so, we're going to talk about that and what effects that could have. You've got over 110 sand bunkers, so a ton of sand. And when I say sand, it's not your typical sand, right? It is those, as you've seen, those deep bunkers that if you get in the wrong place, you could spend quite a bit of time getting it out or have to go backwards. You've got the one creek on 1 and 18 that kind of winds through, and that's the 2 holes that water actually comes into play. And then I'm guessing, I didn't get a stimp meter, but everything I've ever seen when they play on these kind of tracks, because of how high the winds are, you are looking at around a 10 to 11. So pretty slow greens, because if not, the ball will be blowing all over if the winds did pick up. And also, I didn't mention, very undulated and slope. Even in the fairways, you got some crazy slopes and hills that, can kind of position your ball this way or that way that you have to learn. Of course, the course defense is going to be wind. It's all about the wind. And so even from a picks and a betting standpoint, I am going to, and I would encourage you to not pull the trigger on either of making your picks. I think you can, reserve the spots that you want and what games you want, but it's going to, I'm going to wait till, late afternoon Wednesday before I actually start doing any of my builds. You got a fescue tall grass and the deep pop bunkers. You got the bushes. I already kind of mentioned all that. And of course, this is on a peninsula. So, I mean, it is one of the most unprotected courses there is. So weather can change on a dime. And if it does, it's going to make the course very difficult. I don't think I mentioned the historical cut line is over the last few years, +1 to +3. And also, of course, the last winning score at this course was Zach Johnson, 15 under, when he had a 4-hole playoff with Leishman and Louis. And Louis, I don't remember now off the top of my head what Morikawa shot, but I didn't even put it in here because that course was defenseless, the Royal St. George's. And I just kind of felt like watching that open. I was a little bitter, to be honest. I mean, it just was not what I expect when I watched the Open. Just some quick notes that I saw. Weather's been, very dry through April through June and a little slightly cooler. So everything that I've heard about the course right now from people on the grounds, it is very fast. It is very firm and already a little crusty. And then just some notes that I had, past winners did very well at the lag putts. A little bit similar to like Augusta. Really good on approach and hitting their wedges from like that 75 to 125. So, right off the bat, you think of Morikawa, you think of JT. The guy that I'm a little excited about from a betting, and I did put a couple bets, as I mentioned, Russ Henley, and we're going to talk a little bit about him. Okay, so I did grab just this map. It was from actually the July 2015. The only reason why I'm showing you this, because I think you get an understanding of, again, this course sits on a peninsula. If you did not know that, every course has its own, or every hole has its own name, quite similar, again, to Augusta. You can see where, this would be where Old Tom Morris's golf shop and the RA, which I think is this picture right here of the pro shop sitting this way. You got the hotel where a lot of people, I think it's 18 where you can actually drive the ball over some of the buildings. So you'll see a bit of that. And then, of course, there's that creek running through off the sea. And you can see you go out and you track straight out, and then you turn around and you track straight back in. Another thing you're going to hear about is there's, the new course was built. It was quite a while too, but there's no more land for this course to really expand. I think they said there was some abilities to acquire, but they're not sure whatever would happen. But neither here or there. The key things, like I said, all I wanted you to see was just kind of the flow and that how unprotected this course is. You've probably seen this course 100 times. And if you somehow have not, turn on the Golf Channel and you're going to see a ton of coverage that will be going on. All right, so just some quick, to go back to past winners, recent history here at the Open at St. Andrews. Of course, I mentioned Zach Johnson. As you guys know, it kind of stings me to have to even talk about this guy, not my favorite. But he does kind of tell us a little story that, this course can be, won a couple of different ways. You don't have to be a bomber. The one thing that Zach Johnson does very well, a lot like Mr. Justin Thomas, is he's really good with his wedges. I mean, one of the best still is, and has always been a very good putter, especially from a lag side. So I already mentioned that he got in that kind of I think it was played on Monday at a rain delay and had that playoff between Leishman and Louis. And then, of course, Louis was your past winner in 2010, where he kind of ran away with it at the end. Rory opened up with a 63, and the winds blew, and he actually held his own. I think it says somewhere in here they only had 2 bogeys after his first 48 holes. So that was kind of, I don't even know what he was, 40 or 50 to 1 at that time, but would have been a nice little hit there. And then, of course, Tiger, who is, as you've seen probably a ton of, he's been there for the last, week or so practicing, has won here twice. Everybody's pumped. And again, I have no issues with Tiger Woods, but before you go bet him 40 to 1, I think is what I saw his odds at, just don't do it. It isn't going to happen. If you want to bet him top 10 or play him in DFS, no issues there. But for him to win this outright, I would be blown away. Just like I said, I think he's still dealing with a lot of issues, and depending on what the weather does, if it's warm and he doesn't get the wind and he can plot his way around, it's an easier walk. I'm sure he feels a lot better than he did at, I believe, the PGA. Is that the last time he played when he pulled out? Because he didn't play in the U.S. Open, right? Great history. Just a little notes on those guys. All right, if you are interested on stroke gain, who's gained the most strokes in the British Open or the Open over the past 5 years? Now, of course, this is not going to include the 2015 St. Andrews, but it's going to include like Royal Portrush. It's going to include Royal St. George's. Those kind of tracks. I don't know if Carnousties thrown in here. I didn't remember all 5 of the courses. Neither here or there. Jordan Spieth is your leader. The guy just does really well off this kind of fescue grass, the short game, the lag putting. His putter is what's been holding him back. But I kind of mentioned for a moment there, I think it was Thursday he came out in Fuego, and I did not pick him, but I stated that everything he's been doing, when that putter goes off, he's definitely going to win a tournament. Now, I know he won RBC, and even with a bad putter. But, I was a little worried when I saw him come out on the run he did on Thursday. The next guy is Hendrik Stenson, which I'm not too worried about that. Even 2019, he put together. He has been playing a little better golf, but I just feel like he's been kind of out of it for a while. But, his game would be the prototypical game you would need. At one time, pretty good putter, right? He also had his win with Phil Mickelson, where, again, I think that was a bit of the wind conditions. I think they fit that little window where they could really go and kind of separate it, and everybody else was not going to catch those guys. You got Tony Finau, who, I've always stated, he always comes up as a really good wind player. That's your third guy. Of course, Rory, it's got that T2, T4, T5. You got Koepka, which not worried about that. JR, you got Fleetwood, Simpson, Schauffele, Molinari. There's Zach Johnson, DJ, Garcia, Lowry, McIntyre, Hatton, and Reed. Funny enough, quite a few of these guys now, of course, are live players, which for me, I'm going to stick away from those guys. There's been all this narrative about, oh, they got, the contract signed and they got that behind them and they're playing golf and blah, blah, blah. I don't think they're playing competitive golf. I think they're playing a little slap and tickle, 3-day little, whatever. So that's my own opinion. I will not be looking at any of these guys to do anything. I did not get an official scorecard from the PGA, which is kind of unique. I got a lot of information, but that was the one thing they did not put out. Of course, you can go pull a scorecard off the St. Andrews website, but you're not going to get what you want. This was the closest thing I could see that represented what the distances they'll be playing. Again, you can see that totals are, about 7,300 yards. And I'm guessing, I think this is pulled from like 2015. But the key thing here, which, if you've been listening to other preview shows, you're going to hear the uniqueness is that there's, it's a par 72, but there's not 4 par 5s. There's only 2 par 5s and 2 par 3s. And then you've got a crap load of these par 4s, which definitely I'm going to be focusing on the model. And a lot of them, 7 of them fit at like that 350 to 400. So, I think 4 or 5 of them are kind of drivable depending which way the wind's blowing. I mean, definitely number 12. Where was the other one I saw? Again, this 347, number 9. You got number 18. That's, possible to get pretty close. Again, it's all which way the wind goes and how bad is it blowing. But anyways, that's the unique thing I would call out. And then I did pull up from Fantasy National, which was funny. They had the numbers. Everything was correct here, just yardage. They had no yardage figured out. But very typical of what we've seen. There's nothing really to call out here. I guess if you're looking for the eagle hole, it would be number 5. And I think, as usual, it's got the 6 scoring opportunities. Yep, and the 6 bogey, opportunities. The hardest hole looks like number 17, as playing over past history. And it actually looks like the backside's a little tougher than your front side. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything from a consecutive birdie streak that we need to look at. Not really. I was trying to see, if you went off, 10, so you had 17. Nope, I don't see nothing that's really unique on that. So that's it. I mean, it just gives you a good understanding of the uniqueness of the, only 2 par 5s, 2 par 3s, and a boatload of par 4s. I would guess to say 14 if I was doing math correctly. All right, so what am I looking at? What is the stroke gain analysis ranking that I'm going to be using to build my model? What am I looking at from a player standpoint? And still going with ball striking, it is something that you're going to need to do. And if you're asking the question, what is ball striking mean? That is combining off the tee and also, hitting your irons. And typically what I also feel like it takes a good ball strikers typically hit the longer irons and the hybrids very well. So when you have to hit those longer distance shots, like a Hideki Matsuyama, for instance, I think he's one of the better ball strikers out there. And then, of course, approach shows up here. You got to be good with the irons. If you kind of go back, as I mentioned, you got to think about a lot of these guys, they're going to go 2 ways at this. They're either going to bomb it off the tee, get as close as they can, and then have like a flip wedge in. So maybe 50 to 75, 100 yards. And then you're going to have people that are going to work from the pin back that are going to be, this is the number I want on approach because I want to be on this side of the fairway. So I don't care if I'm 220 out. I'm sorry. I don't care if I hit it 220 off the tee. I want to have my 140 number. I want to hit gap wedge over and over. That's my best number, whatever it is. So approach is going to be key. I think putting's next. Not too far off. If you think of Augusta, I think there's some similarities. Very large fairways, very big slopey greens. Now those are very fast bent greens. So the difference would be speed. But this 3-putt avoidance, one thing that Tiger did very well, right, was lag putting, the 3-putt avoidance, the putts outside of 25 feet, and then always draining everything for his par inside of 10 feet. So putting is going to be heavily looked at. Short game around the green. Off the tee, like I said, is not as big a concern because there's so many different ways to go at it at this course, so many different clubs. So not too concerned with that. The one prox of the pin that I'm going to put in the models is 75 to 100. And then you got so many of these par fours that fall into this 350 to 400, just 7 of them. I'm going to plug that in. And then, of course, we want to see how guys do on these 2 par 5s. And then bogey avoidance. Again, we don't know. This could become a shootout. It could be 20 plus under, or it could be 5 over wins it, right? It's just all going to come down to the win, and we don't know that. But right now, whenever I look at a major, I typically always lean, and I'm going to have the birdie thing pulled in that I always show you guys, so we can see who's making birdies, and we're going to know a lot more by the time I, make the picks. But with that said, that's the model that I'm going with. With that said, you can see the custom model with the ball striking weight at 15%. Again, looking at the last 6 tournaments or 36 rounds. So you got approach, ball striking combined at 30%. You got off the tee at 10, around the green at 10. There's the putting at 10, short game, 3-putt avoidance put at 10%, the putting at 25 at 10%. So you can see 30% of my weighting is all on putting. And then you got the par 4s, par 5s, and proxes. That wasn't, did weigh those too heavy, but, something else to just kind of flush out the guys. And I like how this worked. I mean, I like the guys that I saw. And it made sense to me. JT, Cameron Smith, Scotty Scheffler, Xander, Homa, Neiman, Finau, McIlroy, Burns, Lowry, Zalatoris, Fitzpatrick. Russ Henley is going to be unique because in every model that I show you, he's going to pop up. And but we haven't seen a lot of Russ. He's played the last 2 majors. He played a lot of golf at the beginning of the year. And then the last time I think we've seen him was at the U.S. Open. He played the PGA and the U.S. Open, and that's it, which is kind of interesting. You got Billy Horschel and Patrick Cantlay. So what I was saying about that is, we don't have as much update for Henley, right? He had almost the win at the Sony, and then he's had some decent finishes. But so I just putting that out there, even though I'm kind of on him from a betting perspective, and I might even try to play him a little bit. Okay, the other thing I wanted to know was stroke gain putting on slow greens. So this is kind of a unique one, but I was just like, I want to see the guys. Again, if putting is going to be so heavy. And it's going to be slow greens. I'm just curious who, and it was kind of funny. 2 of your past champions are in the top 4 out of these, and that's Zach Johnson and Louis. So, Phil Mickelson, past champion, Jordan, trying to see anybody else comes up off the top of my head. And then Kevin Kisner, I thought was interesting. He would be an interesting bet that I have put in, and I'll talk a little bit about that. That if you think of the prototypical like Zach Johnson and Louis, he would get it done if he got it done. Now, he hasn't been playing that great of golf. I mean, his stats here aren't brutal, but you can see the stuff when it comes around the putting and these short par 4s he's been doing well on. But it just has not been the best year for Kevin Kisner. He had a good showing at the WGC Dell Match Play, and that's really it, if I remember, as in putting 4 rounds together. And again, there's Russ Henley, pops up number 11th on the putting. All right, the other thing I wanted to look at real quick was 3-putt avoidance. Just, out of the last 6 tournaments. Now, Taylor Gooch, again, it's been a little while, right? He stayed the highest, went to the Live Tour. So I don't know how much I would put into that. Not that he couldn't do okay here. I would think out of all the Live guys that I might be a little bit interested in, he'd be one of them. You got Bryson too, but he just hurt and was not playing that great. I stated this well before his injury. He was not impressing me in the beginning of 2022. But of course, Xander, who of course is, on fire. You got Kokrak, which is interesting. 125 to 1. You got Cam Smith, who I like, of course, Lucas Herbert. It could be interesting, right? I mean, he showed up for a little bit, has had a lot of success at the Scottish Open, as in like top 5, top 10 finishes. I think he showed up on the leaderboard, Thursday, Friday, up there, and then I think he kind of fell back. You got JT, Finau shows up again, Thomas Detry, there's Zach Johnson again who pops up, Answer Matsuyama, Hautong, Wilsey, Hatton, and Scrivener, who had a good showing at, of course, the Scottish Open. And then the best win players, which this was actually pretty interesting. So this is, again, windy. This is pulling the windiest conditions these guys have seen. So, like I said, if you think of the players, if you think of the Arnold Palmer, some of the tournaments that we've seen, funny enough, Daniel Berger pops up number 1. DJ, but again, Live Tour, so it's been a while since we've seen him. Finau, that makes total sense. He's always come up as a good win player. Adam Scott, Cantlay, Spieth, Garcia, Harris English. I've told you guys He's always been really good in the win. It didn't have a terrible Scottish Open. Gary Woodland makes total sense. Will Z, a Texan. He would kind of shock me that, and that's the way it goes with Will Z. If the putter does not go, Will Z will not go. JT, Jimmy Walker, of course, your, Masters champion? Oh, no, that was Willett. Sorry. I think he won. I don't know. He might have contended at the PGA. It doesn't matter. Scotty Scheffler, Cam Smith, and hey, there's my Russ Henley again, which I actually was kind of shocked by that he showed up. I actually pulled at one time. I was going to also look at all the coastal courses these guys play. But funny enough, we don't get a lot of data on the vacation swing. Like we get the Hawaiian stuff, we get stroke gain data. If I try to pull up old, the past open stuff, we just don't get stroke gain data. So when I kind of looked at it, it just didn't really look like anything. Funny enough, John Rahm came up number 1 if you're curious. But a lot of that was I pulled up Torrey Pines into that, and of course he's done very well there. So anyways, that gives you the best win players. And then the next thing, if you want to know who's the best ball strikers in this field over the last 6 tournaments, 36 rounds. No shocker, you got Rory, Will Z, Rahm, JT, Cameron Young, which he's been in a bit of a funk. What I've kind of learned with Cameron Young, either he's in a funk or he does not play links golf. I was shocked how bad he played at the Scottish Open. You got Mito Pereira, who actually showed up, I think, Thursday, was like 5 under. I don't know if I think he missed the cut and then just like shot 8 over the next day or something crazy like that. You got Xander, Max Homa, Finau, Scheffler, Hovland, who missed the cut last week. I believe Corey Connors missed the cut last week, but who's done very well at Augusta. So if you do think some of the guys that play Augusta well could do well there, will do well here. You got Joaquin Niemann, one of the guys that hits a heavy ball low. I think he's a great win player, and he was 2-3 under after all said and done. Held his own. Morikawa, who missed the cut, I believe, I remember correctly, at the Scottish. And then Shane Lowry, who is not at the Scottish, but of course is your Open champion from 2016 at Portrush, where I might have told you guys this last year, but the best DFS outing I've ever had was actually the 2019 Open. And I had load up on Westwood, Lowry, and Diddy Clark. And that was, I came real close to winning the big one. It was not off by many, we'll put it that way. So that was, and a lot of that was right. Shane Lowry actually won an amateur tournament at Portrush, and that was the little pieces of information that if you could find that could help, right? Could be that little extra thing. So he was very, very well suited for that course. All right. Then the Ironman that I do for you guys, if you're curious, what's the Ironman? These are the best guys on approach. And right off the bat, number 1, no shocker, JT, Cam Smith. Again, this is all over 36 rounds. Victor Hovland, Paul Casey, who, of course, now he's joining the LIV Tour, which no issues. I mean, again, it makes total sense. At the end of his career, European. Well, even though, funny enough, he does live in Arizona and went to Arizona State. But I'm a bit bitter. I like Paul Casey. I'm not knocking him. It was just, he also got hurt. I think he's trying to figure out how is his body going to heal and move forward. You're getting a few of those guys, right, if you think of, that have been injured and, looking to, lick the rest of the mustard off the jar, if you want to say, of their career, like a Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, I'd be curious if some of these guys were playing in top peak form. I don't think they'd be making that decision, but we'll see. You got Shane Lowry, Xander, Aaron Wise, who does real well, funny enough, on coastal courses. You got Max Homa, Rory McIlroy, Hideki Matsuyama, of course, who's done well at past Masters winner. I think could be an interesting play here. But for some reason, I like Hideki on really fast greens. He seems like that's where he shows up. Like, he doesn't have to worry about speed. He can really just focus on line. You got Will Z, Morikawa, Sammy Burns, and there's my Russ Henley again, and Scotty Scheffler. And then if you're curious who leads from the proximity that I'm most interested in, is 75 to 100. Number 1, Russ Henley. Now, that was not the reason why I already made my bet on him. Actually, I made my bet on him a lot before I did a lot of this research. Just because when I think of this course and I think of what Russ Henley can do, if it all goes right, I mean, Russ Henley, I've stated, it can, light it up one day or light it up for 5-6 holes and then just, look terrible the next. So anyways, you got JT, Cam Smith, again, just keeps popping up. I like Cam Smith, made a little bit of a resurgent on Sunday and ended up, 2 under at the Scottish. JT Poston, You got Garcia, DeChambeau, Victor Perez. You got Fox, who everybody was all over. He did make the cut, but ended up pretty sad. Chris Kirk fell apart. Did make the cut, was one of my picks, but just was terrible. I think he ended up like, I don't know, second to last of the guys that made a cut. Even Mr. Justin Rose, I think I picked him, and he made the cut and looked okay, beginning, and then again, just terrible Saturday. You got Scheffler, you got Justin DJ, you got Laurie Cantor, so there's a DP World Tour guy. Sean Norris, what plays, I think he plays the Asian Tour and also plays on the DP World Tour, and then Xander. And then the last one I wanted to look at from proximities is 100 to 125, which is kind of interesting. Tom Hoagie, for the longest time, I think was leading this 150 to 175. Oh, maybe it was this 175 to 200 because he's still there. I feel like that's fallen off a little bit, but this is what the stats still say. So you got Hoagie, you got JT, Louis. Again, we haven't seen Louis for a little bit, so this data would be a little old. You got Gary Woodland, Schauffele, Cam Smith, Neiman, Gooch, Bernd Wiesberger. Kind of an interesting DP World Tour play, really good short game. You got Fox, Spieth, Homa, Lowry, Bland, pretty good putter. Made one out of his pod at the Dell Match play, and then also, of course, showed up with the U.S. Open, where he had that, I don't know, 36 hole lead, something like that. And this Fabrizio Zanotti, the Italian, I'm guessing. I actually played him at DFS a little bit. I think he made the weekend at the Scottish, but that was about it, I think. Yeah, anyways, that's your best iron guys from 100 to 125. And then the last thing I'll talk about is some bets. So I've already mentioned I'm not putting a ton in right now, but these are the ones that I jumped on. I think I got the odds were kind of mixed on these. So this is just coming out of Fantasy National, so don't hold these. But the ones that I early bet, I like Max Homa. I always bet him, especially at 80 to 1. I think he's a great play. Again, pretty solid Scottish Open. Not amazing, but made the cut. You got Russ Henley. JT posted good form. I mean, you can see that 3-putt avoidance makes me a little nervous, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, the guy just looked, on the bent greens at John Deere, looked like he could do no wrong. So maybe he's bringing in a ton of confidence. I also bet Russ Henley. A lot of these guys I bet top 10 too, so kind of cover myself. And then Kisner, I kind of mentioned, I think that's could be a very interesting play. I mean, it's going to be a hard one to pull the trigger on DFS because of what his, form has looked like. But, it kind of fits but again, we have to see what the weather's telling us, and, we'll have a lot better lanes. Okay, so real quick, I wanted to add this to the preview show. I had a request come in last night through Twitter wanting to know a little more about the different guys have done well in windy conditions. So what I'm going to do is throw this in and add it for you guys. This is through Fantasy National. Again, looking at DraftKings pricing. And the request was over the last 36 rounds, looking at windy conditions, somewhere around 15 miles an hour and up. So I clicked on moderate and windy AF, which stands as bleep, and sorted. So I'm not using my model. I'm just going to use a strokes gain model. So this is total strokes, tee to green, ball striking, short game off the tee, approach around the green, putting, and then DK points, which don't really worry about that. And if you want to see like the top, well, I'll scroll down and show you like the top 30, 40 guys that have done well over the past 36 round and windy conditions. And if you want to know, I'll click on this real quick so you can see the PGA Championship, the Byron Nelson, the Heritage, a couple rounds, one at Valspar, the Players, so 3 rounds. So just to give an idea of some of the information that's being pulled in here, what tournaments. Your number one player under these windy conditions would be JT, Rahm, Neiman. You got Lowry, M, Simpson, Cantlay, Morikawa, Cam Smith. You got Rory, Cameron Young, Will Z, Fitzpatrick, Schauffele. I wouldn't really, well, you could look at Paul Casey, but of course he's been injured. I wouldn't really look at him. You got Louis, Burns, Scott, Tringali, Scheffler, Mito, Homa, DeChambeau, Berger, Mats. Again, DeChambeau might be a little iffy. You got Seamus Power, Tiger Woods. That's a small data sample going a ways back. Again, I wouldn't really consider him. You got Wise, Bradley Spieth, my boy Russ Henley, Victor Holland, T-Hat, Tom Hoagie, Woodland, Munoz. You got Lucas Hebert. Of course, his win came at Bermuda. Pretty windy conditions there. Chris Kirk. I would not look at this. Again, only one data sample. So Kieta, you're out. Mark Leishman. Sergio, HV3, Kokrak. I would not look at John Parry. Don't worry about that. Finau, Gooch, Rose. You got DJ, Thomas Detry, and Kevin Na. That's your top 50 guys in windy conditions within this field at the Open. And then the request was to look at a smaller round sample. So I don't have 18, but I'll go to 12. And we'll do it real quick again. So let's take a look at the data, some of the data that's being pulled in. So again, the PGA, the RBC, the Valspar, the Players, the Honda, which that all makes sense. There was definitely some windy conditions at those tournaments. And then you go to Shane Lowry, Mito, Homa, Young, JT, Fitzpatrick, Hatton, Spieth, Cam Smith, Bradley, Simpson, Finau, Kitayama, Shoffley, Wise, Woodland, Hovland, Neiman, my boy Munoz. You got Scott, Brandon Wu, Will Z, Rory M, Seamus Power, Rose, Seabass, Mats, Rom, Burns, Thomas Detry, Fleetwood, Chan Kim. Again, there's a Kieta comes up. I wonder how long ago that was. I was back at the Sony Open, so again, I was just curious what round they were looking at. Billy Ho, Scheffler, Molnex, Kirk, Garcia, Na, Woods, Lucas DeBear, Keish Lee. That's actually Herbert. I always say a bear. Connors, Molinari, Kokrak, Cantlay, Mr. Abraham Answer, who's affected to the Live Tour. And then JT posting your winner at the John Deere. So that gives you a quick rundown, a little deeper on the guys that have done well in windy conditions. And that's the only filter I have on, looking at all courses. So there you go. And as always, like I state to you guys, if there's a piece of information that I can help you out with, if I have it, I will show it to you. All right, let's move into a wrap-up. With that said, that is my preview for the 150th Open, the British Open, whatever you want to term it. Do me the honor, as always, of course, check this out. This was, of course, Tiger Woods getting into some of his practice rounds with JT. But as always, hey, hit that like button, share us with anybody else, subscribe if you are not a subscriber. Typically 3 shows a week. I apologize. Some of my shows have been getting out a little later, but it is summertime. It's hard to get all this done. And then hit me up on Twitter if I can help you. As one of you guys reach out looking for some stat information, and I have no issues with that. Just if I can get it for you, I'll get it for you. So anything I help you guys with, you let me know either through YouTube comments or on Twitter, and I will do so. All right, guys. Tomorrow I will come out with my picks. So give me some time to do some analysis, and hopefully we'll have a better understanding of the weather, what it's going to look like over 4 days. Right now, like I said, it looks pretty good, but we'll see how it pans out. All right, guys. Talk to you tomorrow. Take care.